Hey guys, just a quick little extra video. I'm going to cover an offer contract that we just got in on an MLS property. Off-market offers are a little different, but it'll give you a quick idea of what goes on. So, in the NAR after the scandal of, I think it was 2025, I forget when it was 2024. There's no assumed, there never actually kind of was, but there's no assumed buyer agency compensation. I guess, for lack of a better term. And I'm dumping this here just because otherwise I'm going to lose it. This is something else I'm working on. So when you're a buyer agent presenting to a seller's agent on a transaction, you always want to include this if you're asking for commission. And in this case, yes, they are asking for this much commission. And I'm actually going to, while I'm waiting for Ryan to come on board, guys, I'll be honest, I'm stalling a little bit because Ryan's coming on board for the call. So I'm just kind of doing a couple preparatory things. I probably should have waited till whatever. All right, clearly this does not do that. File, download. All right, so I'm gonna run this with Cami so that we can see, I can highlight stuff, because otherwise I'm restricted to a display only. All right, so the first thing we were offered was a compensation agreement. And I don't know if Ryan's made it in yet or not. Oh, there he is. Okay, fine, at the stage. All right, everybody, now that we're all here, Ryan, I'm going to walk through. I downloaded what they sent us. And so the first thing is the cooperating broker compensation agreement. This is the buyer, what the buyer agency wants the seller to pay. After the scandal, things have to be more clearly stated. 3%. That's what they're asking for. And they're asking for, and here's the red line on this one, guys. We don't sign this until the seller signs the contract. We don't agree to this until the seller has agreed to what's below it. Because otherwise, we're promising 3%. The seller says, fuck off, I'm not giving you 3%. I'm only paying the seller's agent 3%. We just lost our 3%. Seller's going to pay us 3%. We have to pay them 3%. We don't make promises the seller can't keep. This is the seller's disclosure. And what we're looking for, and there it is, I think, is we're looking for the buyer signing the seller's disclosure. He's simply clarifying that the buyer has seen it and seen that it's been empty. So that's good. This guy's doing it right. George is a good guy. So we told them seller has no knowledge. Now, I don't know if that's not BG, if that is not the buyer, but you'll see the buyer's name is BG. The buyer has also signed Beverly Griffith. There, obviously the seller is George, so BG is not him. Agent note. George the buyer's agent is great. We even got her to initial the agent note about the heat. Deposit money notice. This is just a standard thing where she's acknowledging she knows how the deposits are being handled. Okay, so we have on the buyer agency agreement, we have the buyer's name, we have the address, we have all the pertinent. When you're doing buyer agencies, and you want to be as detailed on this, you want to say specifically. And here's the important thing I want to bring attention to. This legally matters more than this. If you go to a tax sale and you buy based on the address, and they misprinted the address, but they printed the tax ID number correctly, you just bought something else. So in a conflict, which a title company will never let a conflict happen typically, but your PIN numbers, your tax ID numbers matter more. So he's identified himself as buyer agent, Guerrilla Real Estate, seller agent, good. Here's our price. Now this is where we slow down the conversation. We want to look for other landmines. We want to glance quickly at what they're offering for deposit. They're offering a little over 1%, totally standard, fine. This is the landmine section, the seller concession section. This is where they're going to say things like, we're going to give you 10, they want the seller to give the buyer $10,000 off, or 3% off, 6% off. Very common in financed offers, especially FHA offers. Closing cost assistance. Same thing. This is the landmine section where because too many people will look at this number and they'll start doing their math and go to Happy Town. When I sold Wright Street, it was $189,700 with $12,000 in the seller's concession section. So it was good news up here. It was less so good news down here. Settlement and possession date. Cool. We're fine with that. That makes total sense. 415, if this was a finance offer, might be stretching it. So that's an indication that they're only 30-day turnarounds. We're probably not dealing with a financed offer. So he's saying she's getting a home equity loan on this one. He's not requiring. Oh, wow. Okay, I gotta take out personal information on this before I post it. Okay, fine. He's not requiring the personal information, or rather, he's not making it contingent on the loan. Basically, what we're saying is if she didn't get the loan, she's supposed to buy the house. Now, turning it on its head, you'll see that we didn't get proof of loan, and we may not have gotten proof of money. So this offer is pending. We don't have full information on the offer because we don't know, bluntly, the buyer is making an offer. Oh my God, this phone goes crazy when I don't answer it. It really doesn't like itself. So right now, we don't know if they made the offer. We don't know if they have money for the offer. So public water, public sewer. We want to verify these facts are filled in correctly. Very important if you have a non-public water, non-public sewer property. So let's make sure everything's still okay on the recording end. Oops. Not a lot of important stuff here. You pretty much look and just, you're scanning this over to see if anything is filled in that doesn't match up. All right, now we're at the important question. What do they want for inspections? All right here, so they are asking for, and I knew the good news could not last forever. They're electing every possible inspection in the universe. There are many, many agents who by default do this on every offer they make because it gives the buyer the right to do the inspection. The buyer may not do the inspection, but it gives them the right. And a conversation should be had with George on this one, Ryan, is be like, hey, listen, we'll present this to the seller, of course. Once we receive this, we have to give it to the seller, like basically right away. But we then call the buyer agent back and say, listen, just to be straight out, for me personally, I'll put it this way. I always do wood inspections. Always. Never not. Deeds, restrictions, and zoning, typically no. Personally, my purchases, because well, the house is there. It's there. I mean, deeds could mean she's reserving the right to do a survey. She's reserving the right to look at zoning. Will she actually? Probably not. This is probably a very standard list. Water service. We're doing an inspection of quality and quantity of water or public water? No. So this looks like it's his standard list. Radon, I don't in rentals. Radon is a colorless, odorless gas. There are dangers to it. The reason I don't bother is, first of all, it's only a $1,200 fix if I had to do it. And second of all, tenants usually aren't living there long enough for it to matter. But, don't know, this woman might be living there. Radon is not an unexpected one. Property and flood insurance, always. I always want to make sure it's insurable. Property boundaries, you got a fence running along the property. You pretty much go in there knowing this is the shape of my land. Lead-based paint hazards. I never do them. The reason I never do them, and again, this may or may not be what he wants, and we do not encourage he not do them. We just clarify, hey, George, we see you're asking for lead-based paint hazards. I will guarantee you, if you bring in a deep wall test, okay, I won't guarantee it, but you bring a deep wall test, a paint chip test, or a radar test, which are all ways to test for, and probably even a wall swipe, it's going to detect lead. Because that building is way before 1978, and at some point it was painted with lead. And, lead's back there somewhere. We know it. We don't know it scientifically, but we know it emotionally. So, hey, George, listen, we're really going to go through a lead test. We're not changing the direction. We're just trying to understand. And nothing he tells us is a guarantee. Expecting contingency. So he did not extend that. He's given them 10 days to do it. And this is where it gets interesting, because if you come to another end of it, when they respond, they have 5 days to respond. So they have 10 days to do their inspections and come back with an answer. 5 days for negotiation, 2 days to do it. This does not cancel a deal. If the parties don't come to a negotiation, the keys are totally in the buyer's hands. The buyer can take the property as it is, or the buyer can walk if the seller won't negotiate. It's always buy, it's always yes, it's always walk, don't walk, negotiate. But there's no seller exit plan here. Title surveys. Within 7 days, they'll order a survey if they choose to. And again, this goes back to deeds, restrictions, and zoning and property lot lines. Of course, we're not passing OGMs. Private transfer fee, notices and assessments. You're just looking for anything else that jumps out at you, and most of these sections don't. Very few of these sections will have anything of interest. 15 days for condos. It's not a condo. I'm not sure why he filled that in. Again, this is probably his standard template. Things like that are telling me this is just his standard template. Whatever. So we see nothing important here. This is absolutely, anytime you represent a buyer, this is where you need to be. Do not miss this, or you and I will have serious problems. You always do this. What this says is that the deposit they're giving that doesn't matter what they do in the transaction, aside from criminal activity possibly, but the deposit's all you're getting. The seller, if they terminate the deal for a reason not allowed in the contract, if they breach the contract, the seller can't come back and say, yeah, but you lost me a $50,000 sale. I'm suing you for $50,000. This line says, no, you're not. Limited to retaining those sums paid by buyer, including deposit monies. That's the limit. Don't ever let a buyer side agreement, if you're a buyer agent, don't ever let it leave your house without that. No additional terms. Boom. Now, what we then do is we open a document, because I want to give you a list of what you're doing now. So the first thing you're doing is a seller estimated costs, which is a form in PAR. It's in the directory, but basically what you're doing is you're saying, okay, so roughly you've got to be in this area. And you go into zip forms, and I didn't open zip forms, so I won't do it. But you're telling me And so probably what we're doing in this case is we're saying 87,000 minus 0 in concessions minus, well, normally minus 6%, but we get anything over, and I forget how his contract reads. Ryan, this is an escalation clause, I think. I forget. We go back to the listing agreement. In this case, it is not a commission-based listing agreement. In this case, it is the
net
agreement. Yeah. And I forget if it was an escalation, but basically 87,000 minus whatever.
I think we get anything 75 or over, I think.
Yeah, which I think that is. So basically, he gets 75,000. And so we're getting 12,000.
And I think at 83, I can't remember the number.
Okay, yeah.
I think at 83, it's 50-50, I think.
Okay, so pretty much whatever it says, normally it would be 80. Okay, so let me try to make this simple for the rest of the world. 87,000 minus 0 for concessions minus commission, which in this case is, let's say, 11K. Because if it's 10, whatever it is, if there's escalation clause, whatever. Now that's both sides commission. We're paying George out of ours because we can't ask him to double up. I mean, I guess we could, but let's just not even bother. And then transfer tax. So transfer tax in Old Forge, transfer tax is deed prep is 2%. So it's 1% minus 800 equals seller net, which let's just be simple and say it's 70, let's say it's 77,000, 87, minus commissions. And then it's minus 87,000, 8,700, 870 minus 800 equals seller net before liens. And then you'll see in the buyer estimate of closing costs or the seller estimate of closing costs, it'll ask you to spell out mortgage and this and that. Plug in the best things you know to be true. We know the mortgage is around 72, so we'll plug that in. So 77,000 minus 72,000 minus, and we'll just guess 1,000 for taxes and insurance equals 70, so it's 4,000. So basically, we're giving him an estimate saying our estimate based on what you've told us and what we believe to be true, you're going to get about $4,000. You want them going in saying, listen, based on what you told us. And we had one in Glen Lyon years ago where I'm driving to closing and the seller looks at the closing cost and it wasn't $4,000. It was like $400. And he's like, I'm not signing, I'm not selling. I said, okay. He's like, what do you mean okay? I said, great, I'll sue you. The other broker will sue you. The buyer will sue you. Because you were never promised a net number. We can't know until title finishes this job. So this is an estimate. And you always tell them, listen, this is the best we got. So you do a seller estimate of cost form. You also do a form that we also ask George to sign. And the seller estimate of cost is the only required form at this point. We have a form that says if they don't do a survey, they're on their own, basically. But I wouldn't do that here because George already they reserve the right to check boundaries. They choose not to check boundaries. They clearly have that right. So really all you're doing, Ryan, to make this sort of a little bit simpler is you're doing a seller estimate of costs. And you're attaching that to this package and you're sending it off to the seller and then you're calling the seller. One of us is calling the seller, whatever. We can call, actually on this one, we should call the seller together and walk it through because you've never done one of these. So I'm going to look into zip forms right now just so you see how it's done. I don't want to leave this sort of half butt. So can you pull up the document and we'll just fill out the seller estimate of cost real quick, pull up the actual contract with the seller?
Yeah, let me see if I can pull that up. I'll have to log into Bunny, I think, here. Okay.
So it's always fun to me how pages go out of order when people scan things.
Bunny.
Yeah, so this is 6:30. What?
Okay. Envelopes. All envelopes. Completed. Let's see here. We have. All right. So this. All right. So I got the thing up for. You want me to download the seller agreement? Is that what I'm doing?
I mean, probably we should download to have a copy, but it's not really essential for the purposes of this.
Mm-hmm.
It's mostly so we can say what is the mostly so we can say what is the commission. So it's net of seller gets first 75K, agent gets, what's the rest of it, until 83?
I haven't pulled up in just a second here. Multiple windows open, way too many here. All right, let's just go to preview. And all right, so the deal says oh, you know what I just realized? It's not going to be in Bunny. I've got the hand signed document. So let me go.
Oh, that would be okay. So that's good.
Yeah, that's why I'm like looking everywhere. Like, where is it? So let me get that for you. Okay. It says net price and broker compensation. Seller agrees to accept a guaranteed price of $75,000 with a 50-50 escalation after $83,000. After which, H for H gets $75,000 to $82,999. Split after 83.
And it's a simple 50-50 after 83?
That's what it says. Yep. H for H gets $75,000 to $8,299, and then a 50-50 split after 83.
Okay. So basically, we have. So here we have him getting 87,000 minus 70. It's us getting 87,000 minus 75,000 minus L30, which L30 is 87,000 minus 82,999 over 2. Basically, half of that $4,000. So our commission then is 9,999.5. And this is, listen, the reason for this, because he might look, oh my God, you guys are making 10 grand. We're making what we agreed to in the contract. We're pointing back to our agreement and saying this is what it is. Because now's the time to have that fight. The time to have that fight is not at the day we're sitting across the table with each other on a HUD statement. The time to have that fight of him flipping out if he's going to, which he has no reason to. And we then attach to him what he signed so he can see it. Hey, listen, here's your listing agreement. That's the other thing. I forgot you had a listing agreement. So preparation of deed, we just assume $200. Transfer tax, we assume 1% of $87,000. So I would just put in $950. I usually do 1.25%, or in this case, I'll just say it's 950, 960, whatever. Any concessions? No. Any home warranties? No. Any municipal certifications? I usually put in 150 because we don't know if Old Forge has one. I usually stick in something here. And then we come down here, we have titles, taxes, mortgages, and other stuff. Put in a number. Whatever number you think it is, put in a number. Again, these are estimates. Now, $87,000 minus 99,900. Estimated cost of $12,209. Estimated proceeds before loan payoff. So 87,000 minus that is 74. We think he owes about 72,000. So we're saying to him he might get $2,600. And this is also where we go back and we say, okay, maybe he doesn't owe 1,000 in back taxes. We don't know. Maybe, I mean, if we think there's room to squeeze this stuff, we can if we really think it matters. But this is also better as a number to. This is also better as a number to be lower now and higher later, if that makes any sense.
Okay.
Meaning, I'd rather him see $2,690 now and $4,000 on his check than $4,000 now and $2,690 on his check.
Mm.
Because it's a matter of when do you want to have the fight. He says, "Oh my God, I'm only getting $2,600 out of this. You guys are getting way the frick overpaid." Completely legitimate, which we didn't have that conversation, and say, "Well, this is what we agreed to," and we take it from there. But basically, now's the time, and I just sent you this, and you can change it or whatever. But now's the time to be. Now is the time to have that argument. Now is the time to say, "Oh my God, it's only $2,600." Well, George, it might be higher if these other things are smaller. If the preparation of deed is less, if the transfer tax is less, if the municipal certifications don't exist, if you don't owe back title and liens and stuff, if you don't really owe $72,000, it might be higher. And notice I did not point out to our commission. Gee, it would be higher if our commission was smaller. Well, no shit, Sherlock, but this is what we agreed to.
Mm-hmm.
And there have been, my famous story with the $2 million transaction where the night before they signed it, the seller pulled a fast one. I was on double side. He said, "Well, then I only want to pay you 3% instead of 6%." And I literally have the choice of, do I make 40,000 or do I make nothing? Because it was literally, I won't sign this sales agreement if you stick to our original agreement of commission. So yes, that is a conversation, but that is a conversation that is never, once that conversation's engaged in, sir, I need to get my broker on the call because only my broker can have these conversations. Because you and I will have a conversation before we get on the group call. But ultimately, the agent is not authorized. I mean, Ryan, in this situation, you know, this is different because it's our wholesale company, but you would be if you needed to be. But a normal agent, no, you're not authorized. First of all, you're changing something a brokerage firm already signed, and second of all, I'm the one that has to decide that.
Gotcha.
And potentially, Ryan, if he said, "Hey, listen, guys, you know what? I know it's supposed to be 10,000 to you, but that's a little much." Obviously, could this become something like, "Hey, listen, what are you thinking?" Well, how about 7? At a certain point, we will consider making a concession to get the deal done because otherwise we make nothing.
Yeah, so even if we reduce the 99 to like 9 even, something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, an extra 1,000.
And especially a property like this, where the next conversation we'll be having if he doesn't sign this is, "Hey, we need to sign an extension." It may just be, and neither one of us ever wants to. This is not a property that's flying off the shelves. We might say to him, "Hey, you know what? Whatever, pick a number, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, whatever." We on this one we're motivated to have the conversation because this one it's going to be a tough sale. So anyway, so that's the process. Once you get, and I'll take this off the recording, send that over to